Okay, in this lesson we're going to do a step-by-step avalanche beacon rescue. This is an essential technique to have before you even consider going into the backcountry with your team. Avalanche beacons are transceivers designed to transmit a signal and are worn by every member in the touring party. In the event someone is buried, the transceiver can be switched to receive mode and used by the members on the top to locate the buried victim. Although this sounds simple, it can take quite a bit of practice to become proficient. Beacons come in analog and digital models. At TGR, we use the Backcountry Access Tracker, which is a digital model, which we found in our experience works quite effectively. It's quick, it's fast, it's reliable, and it's also very good for somebody in the group who maybe hasn't had time to practice as much as they want to, because the technology gives you a nice, safe, fast, effective rescue. Okay, first thing to remember about an avalanche beacon, every day when you start, I go by the rule of put it on, turn it on, take it off, turn it off. Batteries for these things are cheap, they last a long time, and it's pretty easy to forget and get started out on the trail without turning it on. If you go by the procedure of put it on, take it off, you'll never forget out on the trail. So, on the tracker, just turn it into the green here. Okay, and then next thing I want to do is I want to check my battery strength. Right here, I'm reading 99%. Fresh batteries, I'm good to go. You can take these, manufacturer says it's good down to 15%. We like to substitute out our batteries somewhere around 40 to 50%. Putting your beacon on in the morning is where to put it, on your clothing. It should go underneath your outer layer, okay? So that it's accessible in case of a rescue, but it's also protected underneath your outermost layer of clothing. So for mine, I put it in here, I zip up my outer layer, now I'm good to go. I'm on transmit mode, I've checked my batteries, I'm ready for a tour as far as the beacon's concerned. Okay, the odds of surviving an avalanche as skiers typically start is only about 60% due to the forces of impact and trauma in the slide. If you do survive the slide and you're buried, your chances of survival are 90% in about 15 minutes, 30% in 35 minutes, and down to 10% in 90 minutes. Now those aren't very good odds. Even that 90% survival in 50 minutes, that includes locating the victim with one of these and digging them out. Digging them out could consume almost all of that 15 minutes or more. So the message here is, while this does help you, if you do get buried, increase your survival statistics, the idea is not to get in an avalanche to begin with. And this isn't a passport to go out in the backcountry and get wild. Now, before I get started, I want to just go through a couple of backcountry basics that will enable you to use this effectively if someone is in an avalanche and you do need to perform a rescue. The first thing is, the most basic rule in the backcountry is one at a time. The reason for this is that allows the rest of the party to execute a search if someone is buried. Okay, another important thing to remember is spotters. When you're descending a slope and or climbing and you're going to cross an avalanche slope, you want to have someone or everyone in the group in a safe position where they can spot and watch that slope, so if something does go wrong, they can see the victim as long as possible while he's in the slide. What we're looking for here is the last seen point. This is an important thing to remember, because if you get a last seen point, it allows you to effectively eliminate a lot of area that you might otherwise have to search. It's also important that when riders finish their run and or traverse of a slope, that they also go to a safe spot where they can look for the other members in the crew as they descend and or traverse the slope. Let's assume worst case scenario, somebody in your party is buried. What are you going to do? You're not going to just jump right in there right away. You want to figure out if it's safe. A lot of times avalanche paths converge into the bottom of a bowl. Do you want to send the whole party in if there's a hazard from other paths going into the same deposition area? With the tracker, it's very simple to go to search mode. I simply hold this button down for 5 seconds until I see the SE pop up. I let off the red button. To go back to transmit mode, all I have to do is tap the red button and I'm back in transmit. It's an important skill to remember, because if you're in an avalanche area with secondary exposure from other avalanches, you need to know how to go back to transmit rapidly if a spotter yells that there's another avalanche coming down. Okay, for this exercise, we're going to do a step-by-step review of a single burial rescue procedure. We've decided to go in and effect a rescue for our victim. And what we're going to do next is, if we have a last seen point, we're going to go to that last seen point and begin what we call the primary search. This is the part of the search where we don't have a signal yet. We're trying to do a pattern that gets us to where we do have a signal and our beacon can hone us in on where the victim is buried. Now, if we don't have a last seen point, this search pattern is going to begin at the top of the debris pile. One exception to that is if there are trees in the track. You're going to need to put your beacon on at the top at your spotting position and search all those islands of trees on the way down to make sure he's not snagged on any of the trees. Now I'm at my last seen point. Let's talk real quick again about range on this thing. Even though all beacons advertise far more than a 10-meter range, the 10 meters is effective in the worst case scenario of older beacons, weak batteries, or vertical burials, anything that can reduce the range of the transmitting unit. So, if you look right here, just to give you an idea, we've got a circle around here that's about 10 meters out. This is the effective range that I am covering right now in search mode. Okay, during this primary phase, we're trying to acquire a signal. It's important not to keep your beacon static. What you want to do is constantly reorient the beacon until you do pick up a signal. You'll pick it up a lot faster if you continue to reorient while you're searching. Okay, so now given this, what I'm going to do, my 10-meter range, I'm going to start to work a pattern down this debris pile until I get my signal. Once again, we're in the primary search phase and I'm trying to acquire a signal. So I'm at my last seen point. I'm going to continue down the debris pile in my pattern until I get a signal. I'm also reorienting as I go. Okay, right here, now I'm 10 meters from this edge of the debris pile, okay? So I can stop here, I'm covering that right now. Now I'm gonna move down the debris pile, once again staying 10 meters from that edge, and I'm gonna go until I'm 20 meters from my last traverse. Once again, I reorient as I move. Okay, now I'm 20 meters below my last traverse. I covered the 10 meters up there on the last pass, and I'm covering the 10 meters here and 10 meters below me on this pass. So, once again, I continue on, reorienting as I move. Still no signal, and now I'm 10 meters from the other edge of the slide path, okay? Now I'm gonna move downhill again, 20 meters, begin my next leg of the traverse. Okay, once again, I am 20 meters from my previous traverse. So I'm going to continue on my next leg. Continue along, reorienting until I get a signal. Okay, I just got a signal. Okay, now I begin the secondary phase of my search. Hey, if during your primary search you get a signal, you get a beep on this thing, okay? You stop, and you're just having trouble getting it, okay? Don't stand there for more than 5 or 10 seconds trying to figure that out. Continue along on your primary search pattern. You'll get a better, stronger signal on the next traverse. Okay, we've continued our primary search until we've gotten a signal. Now this brings us to the secondary phase of our search. Since we use digital beacons, we're going to review the procedures for the Backcountry Access Tracker here. For the rest of you, you should refer to your manufacturer's documentation on how to perform this next phase or secondary phase of the search pattern. What I want to do is very important. I'm going to leave something here as a mark. If I had ski poles or something else, I'll leave that. In this case, I'm just going to leave some gloves here. It's important if I lose a signal on here for some reason and come back to here where I had a signal and continue. Okay, the Backcountry Access, when it picks up a signal, will give you an audible and visual alert, okay? Next thing you want to do is get this thing in the horizontal plane. If you still have a signal, start using these directional arrows as an indication of which way to move. Once you get that, okay, move, just pick a direction, move that. Watch these numbers close, okay? If that distance starts going down, you're going the right way. Continue along following your arrows, watching the numbers get smaller. If the numbers get larger, it means you're moving away from the buried victim, you're going the wrong way. You need to flip this thing around and move in that direction. Okay, now I begin the secondary phase of my search. I'm reading about 48 meters, so I pick a direction, I move. Okay, it's getting lower. I'm seeing 45 now. Now I'm gonna move quickly. I'm gonna keep my directional arrows centered. Watching my numbers get smaller. Okay, I'm right on my curve, on my flux line. Getting smaller. Once again, this part can move very quickly. Okay, 20 meters. Getting closer. Okay, so now I'm below 10 meters. My beacon's starting to beat faster. I'm getting close to my fine search phase. Okay, right here I'm at 3 meters. Okay, when you get down to the last 2 or 3 meters in the fine search, what you're gonna do is if you're on a line, you're gonna use that line as a base. If you're not sure of the line, just pick a line. At that point, ignore the directional indicators and go just off your distances. During the fine search, it's very important that you maintain the same orientation with the beacon through this phase. And that means if I'm coming in on my line, that this thing stays facing whatever direction I started with. I go to my low reading, and now I'm gonna check at right angles. I make sure to continue with the same orientation on either side, okay? Until I find that lowest reading. What I don't wanna do is I don't wanna spin this thing like this, changing orientation. It changes how I'm receiving the radio signals below and doesn't give me usable information. This thing has to stay facing the same direction through the whole fine phase of the search. I've noticed that I've been on a straight line here the last few meters, so I'm gonna continue with that. And I'm just gonna ignore my directional indicator for the time being. So, I'm gonna watch this orientation, keep it the same, and I'm just gonna even read out my numbers. So I'm looking at 2.4, 2.2, 1.6, 1.3, okay, 1.5, 1.7, 2.2, okay, so I went past it. So I'm gonna go back to my lowest reading, okay? Notice how I'm keeping this down on the ground. Okay, I got a 0.8 right there. So I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna go this way. Okay, what do I got? I'm 0.8, 1.3, 1.8. All right, it's getting further away. Go back to here, 0.8, 1.4. Okay, so I come back to here. This is my lowest reading right here. Now I'm gonna probe right here for the victim and/or dig. Okay, once I find that lowest reading, I've checked it on one line, I've checked it perpendicular to that, I've got my lowest reading. This is most likely, in most cases, where the victim is gonna be. Okay, I've verified my lowest reading right here. What I'm gonna do now, if it's just me, is I'm gonna go to my probes. I'm gonna get those out of my pack as quickly as possible. And find the victim with my probes. What this does is it saves me a lot of digging to make sure that I'm in the right spot before I break that shovel out and start moving snow. Okay, so I'm gonna start right where my lowest signal was. Boom, I'm hitting something right there. In most cases, I might start here and I'll move out 18 inches and I'll just keep doing a pattern around until I strike the victim, okay? That's how normally I would do the pattern. Now it's gonna be pretty obvious, we're in a shallow snowpack right here now, but it's gonna be pretty obvious when you're probing, you're gonna go at least a couple meters for probe strike distance. When you hit something, it's probably gonna be a lot shorter than where you've been probing to, and/or you'll feel it, the difference between, say, this and hard ground. Okay, I probed my victim right here. I'm gonna leave my probe there for now. I'm gonna whip out my shovel, okay? The reason I'm leaving my probe there is so I don't lose the victim. I've got him located. I'm gonna keep him located. So I'm gonna dig quickly, efficiently, until I get down to my victim. And boom. There he is, right there, okay? While I'm pinpointing in on the victim and I've got my partner, he's probing in a pattern down towards me. If you have enough bodies, there's no reason that somebody can't start digging just below where we're doing our pinpoint search. This is just effective time management because they can start digging a hole, and as soon as we do get a probe strike or I do get right over the victim with my beacon, they can just flake that snow out of the vertical wall they've dug and get right to the victim. Now, once you do get to the victim, what's your priority going to be? It's going to be to get to his mouth, open the airway, and then dig the rest of them out.
小鳥がため息をつくと彼女はため息で返す。ああ、彼女の仕草がいろんなものを動かす。
The stakes are a bit high, so.
The stakes are a bit high.
Do you think those?
Yes, they are. They're very high. You potentially die if you get an avalanche, and or break bones.
I hate to have an accident due to laziness.